Hey everyone, sorry for our shuffling here. We normally have Laura behind the scenes, but I'm doing the tech and talking to all of you here. I do have my trusty iPad over here, so if you have any questions as we go through, just pop them all up and we'll answer. As always, we can't tell for sure if the sound's going to work okay. Looks like it's coming out, but do give us a shout if you have any problems as we go through. Maggie's back with me again. It's been a while.
It has. But it's a pleasure, especially for this.
And Magali knit this version of the Torc, the short sleeve version. And I'm wearing the long sleeve version, which is the one I knit in the newest sport. So this one was BioBalance. And what was the color? It was
it had the poetic number of 23, I think. Okay. Or like
I think we called it silver.
We definitely called it silver because 23 was just not cutting it. It's just
It's true. I'm trying to get myself to. All right, come back to the chat. All right, I'm trying to come back into the chat here because it keeps going out of it so that I'm able to see it. Hi, we've got a few people here who've logged in a little bit early, but I don't think we have anybody who is in here yet, specifically from the live, I think. Oh wait, we've got a few over here. Hello, all you lovely knitters. Now, if you do have any questions, again, pop them up. This clue is all about the body. So the last time around, we did the upper body. And I know a lot of you were getting a little bit worried because there's all sorts of different moving parts. And you've got the provisional cast on. You're doing saddles from side to side. The pieces look really small to start with. So that's actually, did you notice that when you were doing it?
There was definitely a lot going on in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I found that it was interesting to actually getting started with the body because at that stage, like it took me a few trials and errors, just making sure, you undo something, redo something. So by the time you arrive at the body, you kind of know that stitch pattern quite well. And it's just, you have that kind of security, I find anyways, that once you know where you're going with the stitches and you know that
absolutely
it's going to be straightforward after
that.
Yeah.
I am looking over. Oh, this is in the wrong chat over here is my problem. Keep talking there while I fix this over here.
I can keep talking about it for sure. No, because it did take me a few tries in terms of I think I remember when I picked up the stitches of starting from the wrong side, because I always have that thing where I never know which, if someone's telling me to pick up stitches from right to left or left to right, starting at the front left, I don't know which left it is. I always have that thing where it's the left when you wear it, right?
Yeah, that's what I've actually started putting that in patterns now, and just saying that right and left when you're describing it is as worn. Because otherwise it can
that really helps.
It does, because I have to keep, I always get my right and left mixed up to start with.
Yeah.
So I actually have to keep reiterating what I'm saying, and I'm like, okay, how does this look when it's worn? And even if necessary, putting it up against me so that I know which is which.
Yeah, because then you're from the front left panel, pick up from the right. I think I remember kind of getting mixed up a bit with that myself, but it's something also not super great with my left and right anyways. So after a few tries out, you're so happy when it's
that's really common, because one of the class, I do an exercise class, and she started telling us, okay, everyone turn to your right. At least half of the class will go the wrong way.
Don't do the you're right to me, because I have to look at my hands and be like this and then turn that, it's a whole thing.
It's bizarrely common. I'm looking through it. Marcy's saying her internet is slow today. We are getting a few people on here, but my comments up here though are, here, the newest is what I want up here. That's my problem. All right, we should be good now. I think the newest should be up along here. I don't know why they're not coming up properly for me, but that's okay. You can still talk because I have them over here. So for the body, we've got the top part, you've got all the stitches live, and you've got all those different sections. You've got this little stretch over here, which is your right as worn. This one over here is the left as worn, and then you have the back. So if you lay it, it's like a big rectangular thing with lots of different shapes when you lay it flat. So then you're going to start on the body, and you're going to begin over here on the left. You work those, and then you cast on stitches under the left side, work across the back, cast on stitches under the right and work across here. At that point, you've joined the whole thing up, and you're going to actually have sleeves kind of sticking out. And from there, and this is actually something, Maggie, you picked this up when I'd written the pattern, the reverse rows here. There's actually in total 3 that are reversed, but I had written it by mistake that you had done those 2 extra, and you could see the original and goes like, it doesn't.
Yeah, and again, it's a detail, but when you're knitting something that you know you're going to wear a lot, I think to me it's always worth. I'm frogging. I'm a big frogging kind of advocate, and I'm like, I just frog it because I know that it's going to be here forever. So I remember kind of few trials and error, but then I think at that stage I was so excited to arrive at the body and to be done with increases and to just go like what I call the motorway of knitting. It's just like, this is the motorway in terms of like, now you kind of go straight.
Yeah.
And you have all of your stitch patterns in mind. And I find all of these panels, like they're really easy. I find easy to read.
Yeah.
In terms of like, what have I done? Where's my purl? Where's my knit? And I didn't need to rely on the written physical pattern as much, which is really nice because you get to kind of really just look at your knit.
It's the wrong side rows that I would get tripped up on, actually. Okay. That sometimes when I go into the wrong side rows, I found I had to pay slightly more attention because you've got knits and purls as opposed to them like all being kind of what's seen, you know?
Yeah, no, I was kind of tracking the knit stitch, and especially in these diagonals, you track the knit stitch and then the next one is a knit. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And like with this one as well, so in the actual chart, you've got the whole chart is from here all the way down. And you may notice I've done something slightly different. I had what I called ED or edge stitches that I put in at the start and at the end here. And all those are is basically anything that fell outside the repeats of the pattern I had in as just some extra edge stitches, worked mainly in stockinette stitch. But you see where you've got like the reverse stockinette stitch or the bumps or the dividing rows, those could include, they came all the way across to the very edge. So that's why you've got like at the start of that, of the body chart, you've got the ED here and the ED here. And that's literally, it's stockinette stitch with just any of these ones that are continued on so that you get more of a continuation of those lines. Now, there's actually been a few variations in this pattern. There was one person who did the testing on it, and she wanted to make it a little bit longer, but didn't want a whole section there. So what she did is one of the panels, I think this one, she divided in 2. So she put a small section, and then she actually divided it through a few more times. So you can actually play around with the panels a little bit yourself as well. Kind of basically moving them around as they go. Because somebody was asking me today about with some of the sizes, because if you've got, obviously for mine, it actually worked out where these line up here and here, but that's not necessarily going to happen for all sizes, depending on how many edge stitches, how many cast on at the underarm and things like that. It doesn't, I think it would look okay even with the lines slightly differently. Like you can look through some of the testers and see some of the variations. If it doesn't look right to you, what we were actually saying is you could even take one of these panels and put that up there and reorientate how you're putting the actual stitches together, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense to you, Maggie?
Absolutely. I think that's also the good thing. Once you're kind of outside of increasing and decreasing territory, then you know, even if like, because I would always be careful about modifying a pattern, especially for increasing and decreasing. But at this stage, again, because it's a straight job,
it isn't yet no impact.
you can change it around a bit. But yeah.
I'm looking up here. Liz is saying she always gets her right and left mixed up, and she's a scar on your right and you always have to look for it. Oh, that's funny. Oh, hi everyone. I think we've got Susan is from Dallas, Mary from Oklahoma, and we have, hey Marcy, how are you? And we've got France from Marysville, Washington. Excellent. But yeah, so if that makes sense to you, kind of give me a shout, or if you think you'll move anything around, just like what you might do or how you'll work it. Like you'll see as well here that this is where the chart ends, And then what I've done, because this was not long enough and I wanted to lengthen it a bit, I took the first repeat and I put it down here again. So this one is repeated down here. And that's why if there's a particular one of these that you prefer, you could actually also even move the orientation, swap them around a small bit, and I think it actually will work really well.
You could go even nuts with, like, depends on how much yarn you have left. You could make it a lot longer or shorter for people who are, you know, enjoying cropped items.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like it's again, because it's straight, there's a lot of room for getting funky.
There was somebody asking me how you can do shaping with it. So like obviously because the stitch pattern is worked all the way around, that the way it's written, you can't easily put shaping into this, obviously. The only way I think that it could work with shaping is if you took, like at the side here, taking 1 or 2 panels, working those in stockinette stitch, or even in the ED stitches where you left out these details, but just put any of these rows as you worked across, and then you could work the decreases and increases in there, in which case then you'd have your front panels here, your front panels on the back.
And you'd have something, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
and actually,
idea.
For that matter, if someone was worried about these lines continuing down and not having it lined up, that's also another option, is you could actually basically have sections on the side which didn't have the stitch pattern, and you just continued those through so that you'd have a front panel that lined up the way you wanted. You could leave extra stitches on the side, the back panel that lined up, extra stitches here, and then the other front panel. So that basically you're not changing the stitch count, you're just possibly moving where things are from side to side. Like the most important thing is just to remember that you keep your actual, your chart repeats. Because I think these were 12 stitch repeats with there was a few edge stitches as well, probably like 4.
There were 2 versions of the same repeat. There was one that was 12 and one that was a bit longer, I think, depending if it was on the start or in the middle.
I've just discovered why I can't see the questions here. It's because I've got the wrong one open, because apparently I'm not very bright today. Here we go. I found the one that I'm supposed to be in. That would actually make a lot more sense now. And Audrey was also saying you could use a smaller needle for waistline stitches. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah, because I've done that before, that basically have a tighter gauge to bring a little bit in. That's actually a really good way of doing it without having to actually go and make decreases and increases. But if you do start moving the stitches around, I would say just make sure that they're in repeats so that you complete each one. And you'll also, one of the things you need to watch for that is if you make basically front panel here, one, the other one here, and the same on the back, you will want to put those 4 edge stitches in with each. So the whole thing is kind of like a whole thing. It will get a bit more complicated, but it is doable if it's very important to you to have kind of that shaping down here. I'm having a look down here to see if there's any other.
I wonder what kind of yarn did people choose. If it's what's our ratio of like Nua versus balance? I would love to know. Yeah.
And what if you're new to knitting with either of those, what you think of them? What does it feel like for you? Fatima is in Portugal and she hasn't started her yet. And Monica is in Florida. Liz is just back from a school camogie final where her niece was playing and they won. Excellent. Very exciting. Michaela, good morning. You're enjoying it and you've got a quick question on some size. Is it okay not to have a complete chart of the upper gansey design? By the way, you're from Western Massachusetts. I'm assuming that if you haven't completed an upper one across the back, that you try putting in extra stitches, and that will be fine. Like, that's completely up to you. If it looks okay with you, you can. My inclination, if I don't have a complete one, I would generally take those extra stitches and divide them out each side so that it's still centered, is the way my preference for that. But I would leave that up to you with what it looks like on the needles and if you're happy with it. But generally speaking, like on the back, if you've made adjustments here, you can see for this that I had what was here with a couple of extra stockinette stitch in each side. And then as I increase the stockinette stitch, go over here. So if you're changing it around, I would be more inclined to put stockinette stitch on each side so that you've got a bit of symmetry going on, because that will be the downside to not having a complete repeat, is that it's not going to be symmetrical. Then that'd be kind of my concern with that. And we've got Joe from Jacksonville. Kirsty wants to lengthen, but you're not sure how much you need to reserve for the sleeves and the button band, and you're knitting in both Nua and BioBalance. Okay, I'm trying to. Well, you didn't do sleeves, so you can't answer.
I didn't do sleeves. No, I got out.
I'm going to say I was knitting the second size, and I think it was about a skein of Nua I had for each sleeve. I don't know offhand with the BioBalance how much that would be. So that would be my only concern. You can also take a look at your sizing, like if for the yarn you've got, if you're on the lower end of the bracket. So for instance, if it says you need to use 5 skeins, but the next several sizes up also use 5, you've probably got a decent amount extra. Whereas if the next one up moves into another yarn, then it's going to be a bit tight.
But you can do what you recommended, I think, a while back, is that you finish the sleeves first.
Yep.
And then you go back to the body. This way you don't have the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to do 3 yet with the sleeves.
Ah.
But I would say knit the body as written. Don't finish it. Leave it live until clue 3 comes out. Then knit the sleeves, and then you can do a little bit extra. The front bands didn't use a huge amount of yarn. That I think probably like 20-30 grams for that should do it. Like it was not that much.
I remember being very surprised on the meterage I got out of the
BioBalance was crazy.
Like it just so much left.
Yeah,
it was mad. It was mad.
I just, it's one of those yarns that just seems to go on forever.
It's completely different. I feel like depending on the yarn people have picked, like if you've used the Nua or if you've used the BioBalance, it's a whole different season of garment that you've made. Yeah. Because I'd say this is extremely summery, especially with the short sleeves.
Yeah, it's very light.
Something with the Nua, with the sleeves on, I'd say I would wear it much later in the year as well. So probably should make another one.
I know. I think there's quite a few people are making 2 out there. Actually, I should
really.
Because here, Kirsty she loves both of them, so I assume you're knitting both. Kathy said she accidentally used smaller needles on the saddle, but you pressed on because you like the extra firmness. That works fine. You just might, like, particularly with that, you can get away with that here, and then you can just work a little bit more length, so you still get the width, and that works just fine. Because if that's a little shorter, it's not going to have a huge impact. You might just perhaps work a little bit longer here so that you still get the same armhole depth, but yeah, that works fine. There's a lot. That's actually what I love about having something piece like this, is there's loads of places to modify that you can, you can make little tweaks up, in a load of places.
I'd say I would be interested. Like, I think I'd be interested doing it another time once again, and then do any modifications and see.
Have you done this type of construction before?
No. No. Well, no. I think the only times, like, I've done a lot of constructions where I do like short rows and then I pick up the front and the back panel. But I really enjoyed this, actually. Yeah, it was so much fun to kind of see it, because you don't know where you're going at first. If it's the first time you're doing this, you're like, what is happening? Yeah. And you didn't have the videos, or I didn't have the videos. I did take a picture. I did take a picture of this. Yeah. To kind of refer to it after a while. But it was fun, because I think there's, when you start to knit, and I'm always really excited, and there's lots to do on this. On this beginning, there's lots to do. No, and then like you kind of have that momentum of like just figuring it out and like being like very curious. And by the time in a knit, there's always the momentum when it starts to kind of stagnate a bit. Then you're like, oh right, so I'm at here. I'm at the body, so I can just. It's a very different pace of knitting, I'd say, and it kind of rest your brain. I think my favorite part of this style of knitting is actually the sleeves, the fact that you get to continue that pattern all the way down. I love continuous patterns going down. Well, you have a pattern that I really, really like that does that exactly. So, like the cozy puzzle. Oh, yeah. I'm obsessed with that one, and it's the same. It's that really nice detail of like having it all around the sholdder. I really like it.
Karen's is using the newest Sport. It's a lovely lightweight, sometimes a bit stretchy. The BioBalance is even stretchier, believe it or not. Marcy is using BioBalance, and Liz is doing 1 in Nua and 2 in BioBalance. Actually, Liz, they're really different, aren't they? They're like like you were saying, completely different seasons, both of them. Camilla has got 1 Nua, 1 BioBalance. She loves the Nua more. BioBalance is lovely. It's very light in the hands. But does, you're right, you need to get used to it because it's got a totally different feel when you're doing it BioBalance. And it does, I was saying that one thing I do find is the BioBalance, because maybe the fact that there's some cotton in it and also that it's just a very, very light yarn, there's a lot of stretch in it. So do kind of watch out for that when you're wearing it or when you've got it, is that it's a much stretchier fabric, I think.
Especially when I have something this light, I tend to kind of be, I don't know, because the fabric is light, I tend to be even more light in my movements. But maybe this one deserves a bit of a firmer tension if it's going to stretch after.
Mook was asking, would Blosta light work for this pattern? I actually think it could. It would be really, really interesting.
Very different.
Yeah, I think because you'd be knitting at a slightly looser gauge. But I think
but the Blasta could take it because it has,
My only worry about knitting at a very loose gauge is you might possibly not get a lot of definition for the knit purl stitches. That would be my only worry. You'd have to kind of swatch it out to see what it would look like, because you would have to knit it fairly loosely. And you do, I think, operating between knits and purls at a very loose gauge can be a little bit problematic.
You definitely have to block it. Yeah, because the Blasta is a little bit more firm as well. Yeah.
Barbara is from Germany. She says it's pouring rain. It'd be perfect weather for knitting, but you still have to work a little bit before you can start Lutu. Oh, I'm sorry. Soon it will be evening and you can get started on Lutu. Kirsty, yes, that's why you bought the extra skein of Nua and you accidentally an extra kit and BioBalance. Oops, it slipped into your Yes, we've all had those accidents too. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. That's totally different. Here's somebody else. Kirsty used 3mm for the saddles and 3.2 for the picking up the front and the back. It will be interesting. Yeah, just keep an eye on your gauge as you're going through to see if you need to add any extra stitches. Barbara would love to knit a sleeveless version in cotton or another summer yarn, but you first have to finish this one.
Let's start over again.
Yeah, I think that cotton will really suit that as well, because I think knit and purl stitches in cotton, because you get such a nice firm definition on it, would be really, really nice. Yeah, and I mean, if you want just cotton but with a little bit more BioBalance does kind of fall well into that category. Cecily, you've learned to just trust the instructions. Majorie, it's your first Nua and you love it. You're doing one now, but you've yarned for a second. Excellent. Is the yarn for the second in Nua as well? Or are you trying out BioBalance second time round? You pop it up and I should get to see it. Audrey, you're using Stash sports weight, 50% merino and 50% tencel. Also very good, because that's going to give you a very similar effect, or maybe even silkier, I think, than a
tencel.
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
I think it's, I'm not sure what the basis of
it is.
Up. Yeah. I've heard of it before. Very smooth and silky. I think it's plant-based, if I remember correctly.
Interesting.
Marjorie was saying both of them are Nua. So the weather has been terrible at Cecily, and it's she'll be wearing Nua before the BioBalance. we have eventually had a change in weather here.
We had, but I think in Ireland we tend to kind of enjoy it while it lasts, because we know it just won't. It was gorgeous. It was amazing. We had
two warm days.
It was wonderful. The entire country was delighted. It was great.
And now it's slowly dropping down. And yesterday I was pretending it was still warm, and I went out and I had like a t-shirt on for a walk, and the wind was freezing.
The coast, some storms hit the coast as well, I think. There was some crazy rainfall. Yeah. But it's great because I went to the beach and I'm just unsure about knitting at the beach because I'm
really?
just afraid the sand is going to get into my knit. I don't want the sand to go into my knit.
You just shake it off. Knitting at the beach is great. I like knitting at the beach, but like particularly you just have a good bag with you and it just shakes out. I think you should be okay with it.
I would like to go back on Sunday, but I think it's going to rain. So I'll have to knit at home.
I want to know if you're knitting this one for yourself. Would you knit this length, or do you think you'd knit longer, or would you knit shorter?
I think if I'm doing it short sleeved, I'm doing it in biobalance, then I probably would do it fairly cropped, fairly short, as an almost t-shirt, at this stage.
Yeah.
But then if I'm doing it, do you know what? I think in both cases I probably would do it shorter because I like my high-waisted pants.
Yeah.
So I'd probably do it shorter. I think I'd probably try it on once I'm done with that panel and then see what's up there.
Yeah.
But I think the pattern really says knit until you have the size you want plus 3 centimeters or 1 inch or something. Yeah.
I'm going to check down here. Marjorie, North Carolina, it's so humid that they retreat to air conditioning, and the Nua is the perfect weight. Yeah, it's not humid here.
No.
We'd be a little bit jealous. And Camilla, you're watching Bodkin. I've been watching it too. Have you?
Okay, no, but I used to work for someone whose last name was Botkin, and I was like, oh my god, they're doing great. But no, it's
and interestingly, it's quite the lead character reminds me a lot of my cousin. The absolute it's fairly well depicted, because very often characterizations of Ireland on film are not very close, particularly fiction, but there's some pretty good characters in there.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. It seems legit to me, anyways. People sound like they're from here for sure.
Yeah, it's meant to be in West Cork. So anyone who is watching it apparently is meant to be. I don't even know if there's a town near Bodkin. I suspect there isn't. I think it's a fictitious town.
Yeah, but it's a last name. It's an Irish last name for sure. Need to watch it.
Yeah. No, it's good. Camilla's saying, the landscapes are great. Patricia, you can't find the Clue 2 pattern. You see the new videos only in my class, but you don't find the resources. Okay, Patricia, if you go into at the very top where it says resources pattern, I've taken out the Clue 2 one and I've put in Clue 3. So anyone who's actually, I beg your pardon. Yeah,
Clue 2. But yes,
I've taken out Clue 1 and put in Clue 2. So basically what I've done is all of the Clue 2 is still there, and then underneath is the Clue 3. So the last page is Clue 3, and I've put the new chart, which would be for the body, at the beginning, and the techniques. So there's still only ever going to be one file. It's just that I keep adding to it as we go along. You'll also, if you got it on Ravelry, there was a download went out today, or if you got on our website, a download went out as well. But it is also in Teachable as well as the videos. It's just in the same section. You'll find it inside there. So hopefully you should be able to find it there without too much difficulties. Cecilia was asking, what's the best month for warm weather in Ireland? You can't travel in cold weather. The answer is it's really unpredictable. We'll often get unexpectedly nice weather in September.
Or during the leaving certs.
Any time from June to September, you can suddenly have a couple of warm days, but that's the whole thing. It's really, really unpredictable here. And there's some summers that it never goes above 20 degrees Celsius. There's some summers we have that.
And I find I've only been here a few years, but there's often stormy weather happens at the end of August.
Yeah.
And then you'll get the few first weeks of September. But I'd say May and June. The joke is that the weather is always nice during the leaving certs, which is the exams for the high school students. And for some reason,
June,
it's always gorgeous weather during that time. Yeah.
So maybe middle of June around the exam time. there was, and it does kind of take us by surprise when we do suddenly get warm weather, because we were doing a retreat a couple of years ago, and everyone had been warned that the weather is very unpredictable. Bring layers, bring rain gear, bring a warm layer. So everybody had followed those directions, and then we had a heat wave, and it was hitting 30 degrees. The hotels don't have air conditioning, and we were in attic rooms. And a lot of the women on the retreat were literally cutting their sleeves and legs off their pajamas because they were so hot.
Oh my God. But that's the thing, is like, if you don't bring all the layers and the rain gear, it is going to rain.
I know.
Yeah, it's only like you have to bring it.
So Fatima's saying, you question, since you did not start yet, shall you not look for the previous pattern? So Fatima, whatever is up there now, you'll have everything in there together. All of clue 1 and all of clue 2 is in there. So the whole lot of it is in there together in one file, so that every time it's updated, the next part gets added in. So you won't find separate clue here and there. It's all just a single file with the new part put on the end. If you're printing, then you're only going to need to print out the new ones, obviously, new charts and the new page in the end. But I just found it kind of easier, and then it'll get confusing having everything all in one spot, so that if you're using it as a PDF, then you've got everything in there basically. Again, Marcia said, just like Wales. Liz, you're saying that they're totally different in it. I'm assuming you're talking about the two different yarn types.
Not the Irish. Yeah.
They are very, very different. And what I actually love is how different the stitch patterns even look in the two, because the new, I think, has a kind of a softer feel to it. Whereas these, even though it's knit slightly more loosely, it's a little bit more crisp because of the way it's been spun and the type of yarn. Like they look really different.
Yeah, because also the bio balance yarn is also a very solid color, whereas with the new we have the linen that is adding texture to the yarn already.
Yeah. Cecily, will you get another sweater in new or worsted? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Another sweater in new or worsted?
Are you designing? Will you be designing?
Okay.
Will there be?
If that's what you mean, then yes, the next knit-along will be in a worsted. So there's usually going to be a new or worsted option, if that was your question. If I've misinterpreted, or if we've misinterpreted, then let me know and I can make sure to answer it there. So I'll give you a second there to make sure. But yeah, so the next knit-along is usually going to be in the autumn time, kind of August, September. I do need to design it. It's not on the needles yet. But as always, if you have any questions as you're going through this, or you've got any, trying to figure out what's happening here, just post it up in KnitHub, because that's the easiest place for us to jump in and answer questions. And if you can, particularly if you're talking about moving stuff around or if something's not lining up, adding photos is great, because it's much, much easier to be able to kind of help and see what's happening if there's a photograph in there, because I can get just a really clear picture of what's going on. If you're having difficulties uploading photographs, you might take a look at the file size. If it's a little bit big, it might either be slow to go up or it might not display properly. So kind of keep the file size a little bit smaller if you're trying to post them up and if they're not going up easily for you. And Liz is saying you love. Oh yeah, that was what Cecily meant. Do I have plans for designing another worsted sweater? Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
Yes, so you put your requests in now for anything you'd like to see in the autumn, because it's not on my needles yet. There will be worsted. I don't know what combination of yarns. There's usually newer worsted in there. Sometimes I've also got a version of Blastas, sometimes Gilliatt, because that's kind of, am I pronouncing that right?
That's perfect. Perfect.
So that, any of those kind of variations may possibly go into the mix.
I'd love to work with the newer worsted again.
It's lovely.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
It's got colors.
And particularly, I think with textured stitch pattern, like in the Hawthorne one, it's got just a density to it and gives it a bit of a flow. The same as with this, is that just I find that it's got a nice little bit of weight and density to it. you know.
The worsted and the colours and the worsted.
There's the choice for Nua from Cecily. Very good, very good. I duly noted. Yeah, no, Nua is lovely to knit with. I agree. So I think I've probably kept all you lovely people here long enough now. So we will start winding it down. Do pop any questions you got as you come along in here. And let me know if there's anything that you want a small bit of help with or guidance as we go along, either me or another knitter or Emer who drops in, depending on the timing, should be able to jump in there. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. End the stream. Goodbye.